Okay, so what kind of situation do we have at the moment from a GBP USD perspective? Now, if you remember from our previous analysis on GBP USD, which by the way, I will link below, what did we want to see? We wanted to see from here the market make this nice impulse to the downside. And in fact, we were able, as you know, to capitalize on the move to the downside on the pound on several pairs, GBP CHF and Euro GBP long. Now, here on GBP USD, what do we have at the moment? We have a market that created a nice impulse and now started to create a nice retracement. Now, what kind of structure do we have from a daily perspective? Now, on the daily, what we know is that we had very strong previous support here, and all this support is now turned resistance at this area. Now, further confluence of resistance that we have from a daily perspective is by taking our Fibonacci from the high to the low of the impulse, we can notice that inside of this area, we have the 50% and 0.618, so the golden ratio Fibonacci retracements, lining up pretty well with the previous support to resistance. So nice cluster of resistance at this area. That is definitely an interesting spot to be monitoring for the possible completion of this impulse, correction, and impulse pattern to the downside. That would be great to see completing on GBP USD. Now, from a weekly perspective, what kind of situation we have? On the weekly, we had a very nice impulse to the downside, followed by this retracement with a nice deceleration at this area. Why did the market decelerate exactly here? Because if you look at the structure of the market, what we can notice, we had previous support here, again supported this region, again turned resistance. Obviously, when the market approached it from below, broke back above, was turned support, then the market broke back below, and at that point, it was turned resistance. Now again, as we did from a daily perspective, if you want informations on a retracement, what are you supposed to be doing? Taking your Fibonacci from the high to the low of the impulse. And in fact, what you can notice is that the 0.618 Fibonacci retracement was and is lining up perfectly with this structure, which is exactly what you want to see actually happening. So the market creating a nice cluster of resistance at the 0.618 lining up with structure. And in fact, we wanted to see the market make this move to the downside, which the market has done. And we would like to see the market go even lower to test this support area here. So for the last move to the downside that we already know that we would like to see from a daily perspective. Now, if we go and see what we have from a COT point of view, so what hedge funds are doing at the moment on the market from a GBP USD perspective, let's go and see what we have on COT data. So let's take the pound and see what kind of positioning hedge funds have on GBP USD. We can see that with the last report, hedge funds have added another 5K short positions, but they added 3.4K longs. In fact, the market has started this retracement fueled by these long positions. But if we look at the bigger picture, we can still see that we went from 35K net positions all the way down to minus 13K. So from having more longs than shorts to having more shorts than longs. So overall, the pound is still pretty weak and we would like to see continuation to the downside. So those long positions getting closed from an institutional perspective and the market to follow to the downside for the completion of this impulse, correction, and impulse pattern to the downside. Now, at the moment, from a 4-hour perspective, there are absolutely no confirmations to take the short yet, but things might change in the future. Obviously, if everything remains like this, from a 4-hour perspective, this area will just break to the upside and we will have to adjust to the new market structure. And at that point, as traders, we will always be adapting to the ever-changing market conditions. But as we are speaking, this is still resistance and there is the possibility to be monitoring price action inside of this area for potential shorting opportunities. So that is exactly what we will be doing with students. If the market will approach this area, we will wait for the market to shift from a bullish market to a bearish market and then for the market to provide to us one of our valid entries. And if the market will do these things, so shift from a bullish market to a bearish market and provide to us one of our valid entries, we will be taking a nice short with a good risk to reward and good probabilities for a nice move to the downside. The possible target to the downside is simply this structure, previous resistance, now turned support to the downside. Now, if you enjoyed this free analysis and education, make sure you drop a like and a comment. It really does support the creation of more free education and analysis for all of you, and I will see you in the next video.